Who else is involved in this, Eliza?
All right, well, I guess this is episode 2 now.
Kidnapping.
Because we're not gonna pause in the middle of this. While this is happening, though, I'm gonna get my tea out.
Why not?
Anyway, it's a very.
She seems to be able to physically touch us now. So this is It's a high.
What? Who is this?
Maybe she's got
Another version of herself.
No, she's one of the other assassins. She's the friend of the first assassin we tried to kill. I hate this boss fight.
Okay.
I do hate this boss fight actually, and it occurs to me.
She's totally got boingo knees. Look at the way she's running at you.
But here's the problem with this. I remember this boss fight sucks because she's got the same invisibility that the other guys do, and so basically she will just randomly pop out at you and run at you. And I just remember this fight being very tricksy. Wait, there's a robot. I don't remember they're robots. Oh, that's outside the room. I was like, so help me if the robots come in here.
Come on in here.
I remember there was Oh, right, yeah, the computer does give me a warning. Oh, and then she explodes, I forgot. And then she disappears again, okay. I didn't remember her attacking more than once in a row. So yeah, I just remember. I actually seem to recall that I don't like most of the boss fights in this game, because a lot of times
they seem a little stacked in that it's like, okay, I recognize I'm more a fan of boss fights getting progressively more difficult. That
of course makes sense.
Not every single boss fight being absurd.
The problem that they have, and this is the common review question I understand a lot of people had issues with. Shoot! Is that basically she also explodes, so you gotta make sure she's not near you.
Where's the stuff you grabbed?
It's in there's a whole bunch of these against the wall. Yeah, those things. There's a bunch of them.
Okay.
But from what I gather, you don't shoot ammo to collect it. But from what I gather, the original Deus Ex, it had a whole point about it where all of the various skills you could have could be used to beat the bosses. So if you put all your points in hacking, you could hack your way through the boss. If you were a fighter, you could fight. If you were a stealther, you could stealth. There she is! There she is! No, she comes from a different... You can't... You have to completely run away.
I can't just back up?
No, because she explodes. She has the same exploding armpits that you do. If I remember correctly, what we're supposed to do is after she does that attack, she has to, recharge. So the computer tells us that's when we should, hunt for her. But she is still invisible, but she can't attack, so you have to kind of just stealth around and hope to encounter her before she's ready. But this game doesn't have any of what the old game did where, if we've bumped up all of our hacking points, I don't think there's a way we can get out of this by hacking. We have to shoot this chick.
I feel like we should, if we had high hacking, we should at least be able to see her.
Well, exactly. Maybe, and I think some of the boss fights do that better, where it's there's certainly other ways around. So it's I can follow the footsteps she's taking.
And just shoot her then.
But I can't actually see her, right? Oh, now I can. Oh, okay, well, she does have guns. I forgot about that. She is armed. We can't just pop up on her and say boogie boo. Revolver ammo, typhoon ammo I might need. Typhoon more ammo. I suppose I could use that on her. Because I could just... Ha-ha, I've got it too! We're both gonna just... I don't think I took any damage. Did she take any damage from that? Oh, she did! So help me if I... Oh, okay. Wow, she's got the same kind of juice. Oh, that was cheap. That looked like that hurt her, though. That would be funny if she just comes to attack me with that. And I'm just like, I got it too, and then we both do the whirling bullet attack. It's the thumb, not the thumb. What do you call that? D-pad. Right D-pad. So yeah, that's the issue I think this game has, is that basically they force you into fighting confrontations, and we never have a whole lot of ammo because we tend to sneak by a lot. Run! So then follow the footsteps until you come across her, shoot her, and then have a backup plan for when she shoots you back.
Shoot her and then cut out her tongue and then shoot her tongue.
After 3 more claymore attacks. Oh! Never mind, I'm wrong. Oh, well, I think you might have needed
Did I do
I think
it?
you needed to be closer to her than
Okay,
that.
come in.
I forgot.
Did I
so
still
the
get her?
computer.
I think I'm...
Oh, you shocked her. I think you also are shocking yourself, though. I forgot. So she doesn't run out each time. She has to. She does it 3 times and then she has to recharge. So that's when you're supposed to hunt her down, because then she really can't fight back. So you're basically supposed to get out of the way. You're supposed to let her do that 3 times, dodge.
You run away, and she comes back to you.
And then once she does that 3 times, she'll have to like go and hide, and then you can hunt her down a little more effectively. But anyways, what's our new topic? Did you have one?
Well,
I felt like I had one. Oh, but it's gonna be
like you had one.
it's gonna be real heady.
okay.
I had a weird thought process this week where I think
Gee, that mustard.
I feel like the issue that in the modern day is I think we've conflated well, and I mean more in the social commentary, not just like in everyday life. But people conflate capitalism with consumerism. See, you see how heady this is gonna get. And that
Well,
I think
I don't disagree with that sentiment whatsoever.
but I think that's why consumerism does deserve everyone's scorn. There she is. See, you can. That's why standing in one spot while she's attacking. Because, like, I know... okay, well, she came from slightly a different direction. Why do I crouch every time I mean to sprint? Okay. I forget. I didn't think she could do that twice in a row. So, but yeah, I would say stand in one spot, because then you can actually see the distortion in the lights, and then at least you'll know where she's coming from. But then once she's out, and the computer will actually give you advice, so I'd say listen to that. But, because I think it's just, every time I hear someone complaining about, like, capitalism sucks, I'm like, you mean consumerism.
Do they, though? Because there are some people that genuinely think
No.
the idea of someone...
Making money?
No.
No, because here's the thing. Like, this is... Oh,
I literally
that looked like it was
directly...
Oh, I think she's running away. I don't think you're
Oh,
gonna...
come on. That was such a brilliantly
Oh, wait, no,
timed-
she seems hurt. She seems hurt. But don't use the B attack, because that... So I just say shoot her up. Oh, now run away. She's about to shoot you up. You do the same thing I do. It's trigger button, or not, it's bump button to run, not whatever the other one is.
Bump button?
That's how you run. Not... Yeah, don't crouch, because that's what I always tend to do. I'd reload right now, because she's gonna hunt for you. Ah, that's her!
Okay,
Well, again, crouching I don't think works.
I wasn't trying to crouch. I'm so used to that. Is there a green thumb setting?
I'm not doing that, because I have to play half of this, too. But so I don't think... every time I hear someone make the argument, I'm like, well, you're actually talking about consumerism, and I would agree with you there.
Well, that... Careful, though, because it could potentially digress into, or devolve, I suppose is a better word for it, into straw man argument of, oh, this is actually what you're meaning. And it's like, well, there are some people that genuinely don't like capitalism.
Yeah, but those would be communists who can't string a thought together. So I never hear them making the argument.
Well, that's...
Like, if you're... Because that's... And even then, I'm not even sure they're thinking very clearly about it.
Well, because they're communists.
Well, yes, but I'm saying... Like, for example, when... Because here's the thing we like to talk about, and this is where I think...
Meaning me and you, or meaning...
Well, people like us. It's like, we will blame Disney. Why is Disney crap? It's because they're only focused on making money. Well, that sounds like a capitalist complaint, but it's actually a consumerist complaint when you think about it. Hang on, I'm being... Hey!
I don't...
Well, I would explain. I would back up my statement, but I'm being chased by this woman.
The picture, the image changed right as you said woman. She was like,
I couldn't.
by this woman.
I couldn't string a thought together while I was being hunted for sport. Because basically, my point is capitalism. The reason that I hear it a lot, and this is why it bothers me, because I realize it comes from people that think in the similar ways to me. Like when I hear other people talking about, like, this is why this movie sucked or something like this, they always blame it as if it's like a capitalist problem. And I'm like, but it actually isn't, because you can't blame someone for making money cheaply, if that is possible. You have to blame the market that enables that. And it's not a capitalist market that does that, it's a consumerist market that does that. Because capitalism, the way I was thinking of it, is it's effectively the evolution of the economy. Meaning that which makes money will continue to make money, and that which does not make money will die. So you have to blame the stuff, you have to blame the market that determines what makes money. You can't just blame the fact that if someone, because this is an example.
I don't think the market determines it, though. I think
does.
The people who function buy within the market,
yeah, but,
sir.
See, like she's over there. So when she attacks, she's going to come from over there. Well, I don't think this strategy is going to work. I thought it would. It does seem to hurt her, but it doesn't seem to hurt her enough. And like shoot her up, and then now when she shoots you, I'd get out of there.
Trying to run. It's not seeming.
So I mean, I guess this works in terms of it does seem to hurt her. Also, though, you can't do that all the time. I believe that has a recharge, and it seems to hurt you. Either that or it's her that's hurting you.
The recharge is.
Well, it's not, because look at the. Oh wait, I think you might be out of ammo, so you have to find ammo for it, because that attack requires ammo.
Does it really?
Yes, you don't have any, so don't bother. She is now coming for you, by the way. So Oh, you do? I told you have to run away from her.
I'm not meaning to squat.
Well, that doesn't matter what you're meaning to do. What matters is what you're doing. But here's the point. Imagine
all the people.
Like, if you can't get mad at someone for charging money and making money off of, let's say, think of like a hot dog stand. Super cheap, crappy meat. They sell them for like $0.25. Can you get mad at them for doing that? Or do you get mad at the people who support that enough that the guy keeps doing it?
Well, I would say the latter.
It's the people's fault.
Oh, I see what you're getting
That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, if this guy makes hot dogs out of roadkill and they taste like garbage, but everyone's like, well, they're $0.25, so I still eat them. I'm like, that's not an excuse. You're the reason that this is a problem.
Well, but
it's not the guy who's like, well, hey, people keep doing it, so I'm not going to stop.
That's very much the idea on a sociological level that people, when put together, are rather retarded.
Well,
it's a little bit of the. What actually is funny is capitalism at its core is very individualist.
Well, because here's what I think what matters. This is what I mean. Is capitalism has no moral agency. So the idea of like, well, evil things make money and therefore capitalism is evil. It's like, well, that's okay. The floor electrocuted me. I don't know what I was supposed to do in that instance. I know that if you blow up some of the mainframe stuff that happens, but I didn't know she could do that. This is why I don't remember liking this fight very much. But like, capitalism does not persuade in one moral direction or another. It's an amoral system. It's not an immoral system.
Sure.
So you can't. So the idea that's like, well, evil things can make money, therefore capitalism is evil. It's like, well, no.
Well, that's the equivalent of somebody saying money is evil versus.
Well, exactly. The people who support such markets would be the evil ones. The people who spend their money on evil things. You have to blame them. The problem is, if you say that to people, what you're saying to them is you have to blame yourself. And of course, no one's going to do that.
Well, because, again, it requires responsibility.
Because it's like, and that's, again, it's like how many people who like to crap about how, oh, Jeff Bezos is evil and Amazon's an extortionate company. It's like, do you buy from Amazon? Because if you do, you have to shut up right now.
Right.
Like, if you're the person who's like, I make it a point that I don't buy anything from them and I buy from other places, then sure, you get to have your opinion about why they suck. If you're still going to use it and complain about it, you're the problem. You don't get to complain about something you're using. You don't get to, especially when it's like, that's your money they're spending.
Dadgummit.
People say Jeff Bezos steals money from the people he employs. It's like, no, he's actually taking it from you. You're the one giving him the money. Well, he's not taking it from anyone. You're giving it to him willingly. If you object to his practices, then you have to stop using it. If you're not willing to do that, then shut up about it.
Very few people want to actually do what is necessary to bring about social change.
What's necessary, my friend?
What is she?
That was Batman.
I
Come
know.
on.
I know. I was thinking you were saying that you cannot lead these
Well,
men.
I was going with a better line.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm saying I fully agree, because the problem is if you make it a consumerist problem, then guess who's the issue? The consumers, which is you. When you make it a capitalist problem, it's the industry.
The system, which
I get to blame
again, is
the
only
industry,
amoral.
not me.
Right. No,
But it's
that
like,
much
if you
I
just
agree.
decided I'm not going to support these people, then guess what?
But
now then the
real
problem is
quickly-
people get jaded and they think, well, my voice doesn't matter. Everyone else is going to do it.
well, yes, they think
Therefore, I might as well. And that's where I go, well, then you've given into the system, and once again, you don't have a right to complain.
well, and at that point, I would say no system is flawless. That's the whole point. It's going to come down to the fact that humans are by nature flawed, and therefore any system that we create is going to be flawed because it includes humans. That
Exactly.
sounded like a very anti-human,
Well,
let
no,
AI take over argument.
I wouldn't say let them, but I mean, we certainly aren't doing the best of jobs.
All I'm saying is, but that, let me be fair, just real quick.
Okay.
I feel like that argument then could be made for, it's the same argument could be made then for something like communism on paper, where it's like, yeah, sure, it looks great, except that humans are involved.
Yes, I actually used to be more like that, where I was like, both systems make sense on paper, but they fall apart in practice, and it's just that capitalism falls apart less.
Right.
And I disagree.
'Cause there's more check
with
and
my own
balance.
self now.
In
I don't know where she went. Oh, okay, she is coming now. It's every time this chick hunts me down that I start to panic. I don't know why. It's the fact that I can't see her and I have to run away. So it's like if it was just a firefight that I could spray and pray, I'd okay. I think she used up one of her things. So she's still fully charged, she says. She says. Sean Connery.
Careful, right? Most of the equipment in this room
this is
does not
actually-
react well to bullets.
That's actually very true. In this room, we are in a server room. If I actually shoot the computer, I'll be killing our friend. Revolver, ammo, give it to me.
Can you use the mines?
I probably could, but they seem kind of finicky.
She tends to be very
Well,
consistent.
I could-
in that
what I
she
could do-
always ends up by the wall. So just put
Well, no,
it right
that's because
there.
I'm always by the wall. I could leave a mine where I'm standing and then run, but I'm pretty sure mines still go off if I'm near them. Okay, I'm out of ammo and everything. And now she's electrocuting the floor. I don't think this floor is made of water, but somehow when electricity gets on it, it hurts me. Like, it looks like glass. I don't think I'm in a liquid pool, because there's like certain metal things I can stand on that insulate me, but I'm like, surely metal wouldn't insulate me. The plastic is what would save me. I guess it's not plastic. I guess here's what I'll say is you try to come up with a genuine anti-capitalist argument that isn't anti-consumerist. Because my point is I think they all are.
Well, but again, I say, then at what point is that same metric not able to be applied then to something like, again, very much being Führer, don't mistake me for
I
a
guess
communist.
there are water. I guess whenever she runs, it's water droplets. But it's just that it's completely
But
still water.
again, then the same
She's
argument.
shooting at you.
Where is she shooting at me from?
I don't know, but she was.
Be so much easier if I reacted like she was. Strictly to code.
I don't know. So there is water
The
on this
same
floor.
argument could be made for.
Which doesn't make sense. I understand if there was water in a computer system like there's water cooled computers, that makes sense. But just dumping water on the floor doesn't make much sense. You can't. Okay, you have to shoot and run because she does blow up. If shooting her doesn't stop her, and then once she reaches you, she blows up. So the strategy has to be like shoot and then run, because otherwise the blow up happens.
Except that I'm so used to having
Here's what I was going to finish. I didn't finish my statement from earlier. I think the argument, I used to be like, well, they both make sense on paper. It's just that one works better in practice. And I think, no, because the theft of another person's property, which is what redistribution is by nature, is never defensible. I think on a first principles level, it is not something that can be defended.
Not everybody would see it that way.
Well,
Most
again,
people
but that's
see
where
it
I go.
as-
That's on a first principles level. I don't think it's valid.
Well,
And then
but
I
that's
think in
that's a
practice-
sneak premise, though, because you're saying theft versus...
Well, because that's
versus-
what it is. But of course, you would have to reject the very concept.
Yeah, you'd have to reject that sneak premise and say it's not theft. It's actually, I expect that because I'm a part of a global society.
Ooh, that will help me.
That I have this notion that
but that's
I'm a part of a larger hive. I mean...
Well, yes, but that's where you just have to go, well... It is genuinely
arguably-
irreconcilable at that point.
Arguably, the worker bee doesn't say to himself,
What?
all my
That was
energy
dumb.
and effort is going
To
into
which I would
something
say
that
human beings are not insects.
Well,
That would be my
Sure.
argument in response to that. Is you go, we're not hive-minded insects, and we never will be, and we don't want to be, as a matter of fact. So stop trying to make us one.
But that's a completely separate argument than you're stealing from me. I'm just saying, again, I sound very communist.
Well,
in
no,
this
I'm simply saying
episode.
Well,
okay,
but here's the point.
Disclaimer:
You have to make
thoroughly
you have to
not
make the
communist.
argument why something I have worked for belongs to you. That's the Thomas Sowell position. When people say pay their fair share, he says, okay, how do you determine how much of what's mine is your fair share? Because there is no way to do that. There literally is no metric by which you could say this amount that you've earned for yourself you can keep, but the rest you have to give away. There's no metric for that. It's other than just everybody gives and everybody takes, and that's so nebulous as to be useless. I'm not arguing capitalism versus communism. I'm simply trying to delineate between capitalism and consumerism.
But
So what I'm saying is every argument I have ever heard that is not a pro-communist argument but is rather an anti-capitalist argument, I suppose that's the caveat, is I'm not talking about pro-communist people because I've never heard their arguments that make any sense. So I don't feel the need to she's coming. I don't feel the need to debate them. It's the fact that I hear people making anti-capitalist arguments that would otherwise be making things that I would agree with. Like, I think Disney sucks as well.
Okay, that's...
She doesn't stop chasing you until she explodes. She has 3... That's what the computer's trying to warn us. She's got 3 loaded things that she can explode.
Loaded hip gyrations.
Whatever she does. And she can do it 3 times, and she will do it 3 times.
She can do it 3 times.
And if she's chasing you, she's not going to stop chasing you until she does it. And then once she blows up, she has to go away and reload her hips or something. And then she comes back. And then once she's done it 3 times, I guess, I don't know what happened. She has to take a longer time. But anyway, so that's
I feel like that digressed.
That's the difference I'm saying is I am not attempting to argue against capitalism. I'm simply trying to make a distinction between capitalism and consumerism.
And I don't disagree with that. And at face value, I understand what you're saying. All I'm saying is that if you make that argument at any level, what you're saying is humans are the problem, which I think is going to be true across the board.
Well, obviously, but my point is people seem to think that it's uniquely capitalism that allows for the stuff that they don't like. And I'm like, no, it's
that's
consumerism
certainly
that
not
does
true.
that.
Yes, I totally agree with that. But that, unfortunately, is
It's a bitter pill. Because it means it's your fault.
Well, but it's also something that I think is human nature.
Well,
like that.
Yeah, people always try... People always will try to deflect blame. That's natural.
No, not that. What I'm saying is the whole idea of consumerism is very much a human condition. It's a bit of a gluttony,
there's a cultural
sin kind of thing.
but there is a cultural tendency towards it these days.
Within
because
Western culture, within American culture.
Because it didn't used to be possible to be highly consumerist. It used to be like you didn't even have the option.
How so?
Because there wasn't stuff. Anything you didn't make, you didn't have. Whereas now we live in a society where cheap crap is very easy to get a hold of. So my point is...
I was going to say something very unfeeling that would have gotten us demonetized instantaneously.
No, I'm unfeeling. I am unfeeling about this issue. I go, if it's your fault, it's your fault. We're never going to fix it unless we acknowledge it's our own fault.
I mean...
If you buy cheapy crap that you know is crap from places that exploit, you are the problem, not them.
Well, but it's...
Okay,
but it's,
she's around you, clearly.
Okay,
I don't know what you thought. You just were getting hurt by nothing. You do have to look around.
I know, but normally there's some sort of warning that she's coming.
Well, she came from the side, apparently.
That
argue against the point I'm making, not against the point you think that I'm arguing against.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is...
Because again, I'm not talking capitalism versus communism. I'm talking about capitalism versus consumerism.
Right.
They're not opposites. They're aligned, I think. Because capitalism plus consumerism, that's the problem we're in.
Right.
But people are trying to ditch the capitalism rather than the consumerism. And I'm thinking we could keep the capitalism and ditch the consumerism, and we'd be fine.
But it's a culture of instant gratification, is what.
Well,
it is.
exactly. But that's what I'm saying is we got to get. How do we get out of that?
It's the same problem as the mic. Well, you stop. Let's start. I'm gonna get in a little bit Peterson-ish on this.
Now you're gonna do that.
I'm gonna get Petersonian. Let's start by I'm gonna skip the making the bed comment because he's done that enough. But let's start by cooking our own food.
Well, yeah, but
and not in a microwave. How about that? Because again, the notion of like, hey, I'm hungry now. I'm just gonna put something in. It's gonna take 2 seconds to zap fry. It's like that. That's a problem to me. Because then you have all these people that have no idea how to cook a proper chicken. And so when
a proper chicken, I would like one proper chicken, please.
Just saying. So you have people, you have people coming into the kitchen telling you your chicken's dry.
Okay, this is sounding like you went from a moral example to some kind of deep personal prejudice. Has this happened to you?
I'm just saying.
I think that's
let's
part
start
of
with
the
that.
issue. But my point is, how do you convince people? Because everyone, that's the other thing is, like, everyone knows that consumerism is a problem. But everyone seems to acknowledge, like, yeah, hyper-consumerism is also an issue. But I'm like, so can't we just channel the capitalist hatred towards the thing we all already agree is a problem?
No.
But why? Because everybody already knows that this is a problem.
It requires self-reflection and
you're about
shadow integration.
Yeah, like what you don't have.
She just...
No, I will be taking that term because... Well, that's not my fault that you didn't look at the screen. It's like...
She threw... That was a flash dance if I've ever seen one.
Well, that's clearly how she makes the explosion happen, is she does a bit of a hip swivel.
Okay. I think you just need to backpedal.
I'm just saying.
Swidge.
I think whoever designs these augmentations,
the explosion happen by swinging her hips.
Whoever designed the augmentations clearly did this on purpose. They were trying to create a parallel, and it's not my fault for pointing it out.
The problem is we've already drawn significant parallels with Balestro as well. So
I mean, come on. So my point is, can you think of a...
Are you expecting me to be
I'm trying to I'm hoping that you could help me fine-tune this argument. Well, because my point is, why does it keep doing
the reason I made the stank face when you first said it is because I think it's a fairly well-crafted argument. Because it's pointed. I mean, the point is...
But my point is, can you think of a genuine capitalist complaint that is not actually truly a fault of consumerism?
Not in any logical manner, but the problem is people that believe in anti-capitalist context.
But I'm not talking about hardcore, genuine communists who actually promote.
I never said communist.
Because some people are just anti-capitalist and not communist.
I said.
Well, exactly, but you seem to keep conflating anti-communists or anti-capitalists with communists.
I'm not doing that at all. You were the one that brought it up, you lemon.
Well, you seem to be unable to provide me the counter argument I'm looking for without resorting to communism.
I'm not giving you any counter argument. What I'm saying is I think that it's true that there's no logic in saying, oh, people that make money, like, that's a terrible thing. And it's like, no.
Let's do it again. You don't have to look at me when you speak. I can hear you. I'll give you another turn if you feel like you're being sorely put upon.
It's not that. I am so used to the sprint being on this thumb.
But you do have to get over that.
I just keep squatting and it's really bothering the crap.
Hey, well, that's why you're confusing her. That's why she's doing the hip swivel. She's like, oh, is he into this?
I don't know that I've ever heard an argument. I guess I'll put it that way. I've never heard an anti-capitalist argument that has been one that has not boiled down to an issue of consumerism. That is certainly
exactly
true.
And that's the point I'm trying to get at is there a counter argument to what I'm putting forth? Because I would need to know it if I'm going to put it forth.
I can think.
Because every time,
I don't think illogically. So
because we rail against Disney, and the reason we do it is not because of capitalism. That would be her. It's because of consumerism. But the problem is
That seems a little.
Well, what's
she just
weird is
lit
there's
me
a-
up like a
Well,
Christmas
because
tree.
she also has guns. I tried to say this. She isn't only reliant on the explosive hips.
She ought to be.
No, you're the problem here. Because there's an odd... Here's what I'm trying to point out, is there is a weird convergence between anti-capitalist people who hate Disney and regular capitalist people who also hate Disney. And that's where I'm trying to go... Is I hear video essays...
Oh, I see.
And
what
I'm
you're
saying, like,
getting at.
people
Okay,
who get
so-
like, this sucks and
okay.
Disney is the problem because of
Let
this.
me hear. So, I was missing that piece of your initial
Well,
argument.
it's not
so you're
specifically Disney,
no,
but I mean, that's the best
it
example.
at least it clinches the argument on one particular point. And you're saying people that are anti-capitalist sometimes use that as a manner or as a means of saying, "Oh, Disney's horrible."
Like, the
because
reason
they're-
stuff sucks is
they're
because it's all about... Well, like,
capitalists." And it's
if you look up the words... why capitalism killed art, you'll get essays and videos and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Consumerism killed art. If anything, capitalism is what helps art. Because as it turns out, artists need to live. They actually would like to make money. If artists made more money, they'd make more art. Am I standing on the Okay, see, I thought this was the insulated non-electrical floor. Because when she hurts herself whenever that happens, but I don't know how she's doing it, I don't know how to protect myself against it. I think there's only like one area of the floor that doesn't get electrocuted.
more than likely around here.
So what I'm trying... Well, no, because that was hurting her too.
No.
So what I'm trying to get at is we have to be able to draw the line
Well-
when people try to use Disney or other like corporate problems
think
or
the
this
only way
idea
that
of
you
capitalism killed art. It's like, well, no, we have to draw the line because then we can win them to
I
say...
think you can unpack or maybe refine your argument about...
It's going to happen again. Well, at least you got her in the head that time. That was a good one.
About
I think this side... Look at
consumerism as...
The ground where you just were looked like the non-electrical kind.
What do you mean?
That way. Whatever that panel is, I think that's the kind of thing you can stand on that doesn't get electrocuted. I'd
Well,
pick
it's
up...
metal, though.
Well, don't ask me. I'd get whatever's in the locker, though, because you're going to run low. And you might not have time. Well, you're only going to have 3 bullets, so make them count.
I think that the only way you could refine it is by saying that, and again, it's partly what I... It's partially what I already said, which
Well, shoot her. She's already exploded. You don't have to run away after she explodes.
It's partially what I said, which is that...
Or do you? She's chasing you.
Is she,
I thought when she exploded, she didn't chase you.
Oh, you lied. You liar! Is again the instant gratification thing. It's people are no longer willing to wait for quality. They just want
So
something
the problem
instant.
is essentially it's nihilism. That's what we're getting down to. We live in a not too nihilistic culture to believe in actually caring about something being good.
Well, that's more of an Ayn Rand argument more than it is a nihilist argument. I mean, I would
Well,
say...
Ayn Rand was principally an opponent of nihilism. It was like her, yeah.
Sure. But my...
Because the whole point is, like, I think the art example is the best one because that seems to be the one that we could actually have some unifying. You could convince the communist weirdos that's like, no, the reason art isn't, good is actually because of
People aren't
consumerism,
willing to
not
wait,
because of capitalism.
But they're not willing to wait for
It's
quality.
like big budget trash makes money. That's not capitalism's fault because guess what? If people who made good movies made money, then we'd get more good movies.
Right.
So you want capitalism, but you also want non-consumerism. Because then the good stuff that people make would make money. And then we would have more good stuff.
Well, and this is where it comes down to, I think it's really... The question has to be asked, where does the blame lie? And I think that's
with
what you're...
consumers.
Okay.
You can't get mad at someone.
Saying. I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
And I also... I think that the chief part of your argument is that it's not the system itself. That I agree with.
You can't get mad at a system for producing things that you purchase.
Can get mad at the distributor as well as the consumer because
Well, no, because they're the same.
No,
it's the same thing.
Because if my consumer says we want something quality but we want it faster, it is up to me as the provider to go no. You're not going to get it faster. You're going to get it quality.
No, but
Wait.
but you can't. I don't think it's reasonable to expect businessmen to not want to make money.
I'm not saying
that is their entire
I'm not
job.
saying that. What I'm saying is,
So you're saying yes because the fans demand it, but you just have. But that's it's the fans' fault. If a director makes one good film and then the fans say we want this,
but we want it quick,
and he does that, then whose fault is it?
Well, but it's up to the director also to say, I'm not going to get it out that fast if you want it to be good.
Your argument, yes, that you should stick by your principles and say I'm going to stick with my vision and not. Yes, you could argue that, but I think that's.
I mean, case in point, Peter Jackson.
But the problem is people who. Well, exactly, but that's the exact issue. Is that. That ultimately just brings failure to everyone. In which case I would say you have to take it back to the root, and the root is the fans who are stupid. Because...
So let me clarify something. In your argument...
Don't just take everything, or don't shoot ammo. We don't need that ammo. That's for guns we don't have.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
In your argument...
I mean, there's probably some of them in one of these other lockers, but we don't need to fill up our inventory. Those are the good ones. See? I told you.
In your argument, fans or consumers are solely responsible for...
Capitalism is nothing more than a litmus test to see what will make money. It is fans who determine what will make money. If you buy something that is cheap and crappy, the market, that is to say the people who distribute that, are going to look at their numbers and think, well, this made a lot of money. Clearly people like it.
And I hardly had to do anything.
No, they're going to think... No, because guess what? If you make a high quality product that makes a lot of money, they're going to keep making it.
But if you make a low quality product for less out of your own pocket and you sell it for a high price and people still buy it, that's what you're going to do.
But my point is they're going to do... But
that's
a high quality product that makes money will usually make more money than a cheap quality product because high quality...
I disagree. It depends on how it's distributed.
Well, on a technical level,
why
I
is
suppose,
it that most people are off...
The biggest money-making movies are the good ones. Blockbusters make a lot of money. But it's true artistic... Now, not sometimes it's a matter of culture. Like, sometimes things that are really great fly under the radar because in some ways that's where you'd say they're the ahead of their time kind of concept. But then they usually manage to find their place eventually.
Okay,
so you do have to
take it outside of the world of art for just a moment.
I don't feel like we should because yes,
it is.
But we're not talking about criticism, so we don't have to. We can let it be a subjective, nebulous thing because regardless of what you think makes good art, everyone knows what good art is to them.
Sure.
So we can keep it nebulous.
But what I'm saying is, why is it that so many business people on a product, like an actual like consumer product, why is it that so many people offshore outsource? It's because
just
it's
a matter
cheaper.
of cheapness, yes.
Yeah, it's a matter of cheapness. So they're saving money, they're saving time, typically, and they're saying, okay, I get a crappier product now, technically, by all
well, but
definition,
then I would say whose fault?
But people are still buying it.
Well, then that's the people who buys its fault. You can cry all you want about how these people shouldn't be, exploiting their employees. They shouldn't be using inferior stuff, but they are. The only reason they will stop is if you stop buying it. And again,
but
that's
there
not
has to be an alternative, is what I'm saying. And
make it.
Exactly.
There doesn't have to be one that exists. You could say, I'm refusing to buy this, and if there's nothing else, I'll make it myself. Now that's hard, because that means you're going to have to go, I don't get to have a lot of stuff. Anything I can't make, I don't get to have. But that's how we used to live. That's what I'm getting at, is people think, what a barbaric way to live, to not have things you don't make. And I'm like, yes, it's almost like we lived that way for 2,000 years. It's almost as if that's our default state rather than anything else. Will she ever catch up to me? Okay, so she is faster than me slightly.
So again, we're back to...
She made it.
So we're back to start making your own.
Wait, am I on the safe spot? Is this the safe spot? Clearly not. There's an area of floor that I don't get electrocuted, and I don't know where it is.
Is it just on the opposite side of...
I feel like people think of corporations far too personally, as if it's like Apple. Mr. Apple and produces stuff I don't like.
Well, it certainly becomes
there's
less
a bunch
personal.
of people looking at spreadsheets going, numbers big, stick with big numbers.
Right.
They're not thinking, we're going to be evil and wicked and save money by exploiting slave labor in Asia. No one's making that executive decision. It's a spreadsheet that they go, big numbers, go with big numbers. So you're going to try to claim that it's morally the fault of the people who do that, but there is no people who do that. It is literally computers.
I'm not bringing
in
ethics. You're bringing in ethics.
Well, no, ethics are involved. I think ethics are involved. I mean, when you talk about exploitation,
because here's the thing.
That's more on the business, not the art end, I suppose. Right. But still, I think it's.
But I'm not even arguing. Oh, it's ethically wrong to. It is. I'm also not saying it's not. But I'm not even saying that's the issue. What I'm saying is the distribution has to be equally responsible for.
But the people who make it are the distributors. So when you say distribution, you just mean the people making the products?
Maybe I should say it this way. If you're a consumer and there is not an alternative,
make it yourself.
Exactly. The responsibility then is on you as somebody who is...
Now that's very hard and that's a very high standard and that's why people don't do it. I agree.
That part is a hard pill to swallow for sure, but it is the truth to say...
But it's also not true for most things. There's alternatives to just about everything these days. You don't have to buy from Amazon. Yes, it's a whole lot easier and it's very tempting, but you can get the things you're looking for not on Amazon.
Sure. I'm talking about, though, so I guess I keep taking it back to an actual, production, consumer's product, because it's an easy way of saying, if it's a crap product, but it is selling a ton of money, and the supplier keeps providing it because they go, well, I'm making a ton of money with this. It is chiefly, yes, up to the consumer to say, well, we're not buying that anymore. But then there has to be a way of saying, we're going to buy this other thing that is better.
But those exist. You're acting like there's no competitor to Amazon. Okay. Or cheap Chinese-made crap.
Why are you going back to Amazon? You keep jumping back to
What I'm saying, you act like there is a competitor for everything. You don't
in an ideal world, yes.
You don't in our world. You don't have to buy whatever you're trying to buy from Walmart when it says it's made in China.
No, I agree with that.
You're acting like, well, that's the only way I could get it. Because they're not willing to put in the effort to find another one.
Correct. It's ease.
It's not that it doesn't exist, but it does take effort.
Right.
Well, yes, but that you're suggesting that I'm
bringing you back to my original argument, which is that it's ease. It's about the microwave culture.
Well, I've never denied that. But I'm saying that's not enough. That's not enough of an excuse.
Well, it's certainly not a good excuse.
It's not an excuse.
Okay. Laziness is certainly an excuse. It's just not a good one.
No, an excuse has to be good. Otherwise, it's not an excuse.
Okay.
You don't get to excuse yourself with BS.
Okay.
Then it's not an excuse. An excuse actually excuses you. I can present an extenuating circumstance that makes my decision not a bad one in this circumstance. If I can provide evidence that I did it because of this particular situation.
Well, it's the notion
that I am excused.
Time is
that is a literal definition
God
of excuse. Here. I am excused.
I don't want to waste time, therefore I'm going to buy this crap product because it saves me time.
But whose choice is it to do that? Yours. No one's forcing it.
I agree.
Therefore, the choice is yours.
I agree, but it's ease. Ease is really the villain here. It's not solely consumerism.
Well, but that is exactly... Consumerism is ease. What are you talking about? Consumerism is buy cheap crap because you want cheap crap because it's easy and because you can have it and you wouldn't have it otherwise. That is consumerism.
Versus buy good crap because it's good.
Buy good stuff because then it's actually worth something and it will last and it's not just cheap garbage.
I don't think that culture was never present. So when that I
50s.
think so I think you'd have to argue when did it digress and why?
Post-war.
Okay, now why?
Industrialization.
Again,
But even then, it wasn't. I suppose it's not even fair to say it's the 50s. It was really more the 60s because in the 50s, stuff was still. That was when good stuff became more commonplace. That was the difference.
With the dawn of industrialization?
Well, the dawn of industrialization wasn't the 50s. I mean, industrialization, it was just when mass market products like home appliances, stuff that everyday people use.
Yeah, became more.
It's you could have better stuff that normally you wouldn't have been able to have before. at all.
But I think...
But it was made well because they went, we're going to make this high-quality thing and we're going to sell it. And then the problem is, I don't know when this happened, but the problem is,
that, I think, is
people in the 70s realized, hey, you know those fridges we sold those guys in the 50s? They're still around, they're still working, which means there's no one left to sell a fridge to. Everybody has already bought their fridge. So who are we going to sell fridges to? Well, now that's when that's when the built-in obsolescence became a thing. They started going, well, we have to design stuff so that it deliberately fails after a while, because otherwise we won't be able to make it.
But is that the consumer's fault at that point?
No, that
now
I suppose...
Now we're back to it.
Now, yeah, but even then I would say the consumers should have not bought crappy stuff.
That I agree with.
Because again, I think there's a bottom line-ness that I think we need to start going back to viewing corporations as what they are, being faceless, non-human facades. I think we humanize them too much, which makes us think, well, GE made the decision to make their fridges crappy, and that was their fault and they're bad people. It's like, I don't think that decision was ever made by a person. Maybe it was. I'm no better historian. They're chasing you still. It's on the radar. Run. But even then, I feel like those are the kinds of things.
What am I supposed to do after she's blown her armpits?
You have to do it. She does it more than once. No, you shot her once and then ran away. You have to continue shooting.
But I can't run backwards, which is the only other sensible way of shooting.
Well, you can, but she is faster than you, so you have to shoot and run and shoot and run. It's a bit of a... I'm saying, my point is...
It's a game.
I don't believe... Now, I could be wrong, but there's the issue, is no one seems to know. It is the fact that it's the past makes it hard to know. I don't think anyone came to the GE CEO and went, we have to make our products worse in order to make money.
No, I think
a bunch of spreadsheets were looked at. They realized, and then I think
cost.
Yeah, but I don't think that it was any one person's decision. Because again, I think that's a very humanistic way to look at it, as like the company decided. Well, the company doesn't decide anything. People decide things.
Okay, so you're back to, again, the sociological argument that as a group, people are dumb.
Well, that's never I'm not denying that, but I also there's no solution in that, is my point. So that's an unhelpful statement. It doesn't lead us towards a conclusion.
No, what it says is that its products are better off when they're made by individuals. Hence why buy local is a thing.
Well, yes, but that's the thing, is that's exactly what I'm trying to get at, because that is a very cross ideological framework. I don't know, see, I don't know what to do when this happens. Literally, I have no clue what to do when that happens.
Jump around like a jackrabbit.
Well, because it doesn't, I'm trying to make as minimal contact with the floor as possible. What I'm saying is, there is a crossover from from opposite sides of the ideological spectrum that agree that buying local is better. So my point is, why hasn't that taken off? If it has bilateral support, why isn't it dominating yet? Because clearly something's the issue. Something is preventing that from... If you have people who would otherwise be staunchly opposed ideologically, who agree on this, you'd think that, well, that must mean if people that different can get along on it, then clearly this is something we can all get along with. She's gonna turn on you eventually. I don't think you're supposed to chase her until she runs out of...
No, I'm trying a different methodology.
Well, you're gonna run out of ammo is what you're gonna do. See? So that's what I'm trying to get at, is if we can agree with it on a cross-ideological basis, why does it not have better support?
Because it's difficult.
And is that the only reason? So it's a nihilist issue. We basically, there's nothing, we have no meaning in life to support difficult things. Because that's the Petersonian idea, is the only way you endure difficulty is with some sense of purpose that drives you through it. And nobody has that. I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing.
You're really getting to a very depressing but probably apt.
Well, yeah, so I think it's entirely realistic to say that we live in far too nihilistic a society to have nice things. Because
how do you change that?
Well, that's exactly what I'm trying
By injecting meaning into...
Well, but you can't inject... People have to do that themselves, and that's the issue, is I don't know how to make people do that.
Or we inject meaning up people's butts.
Well, how would that be done?
It's redwood.
Uncomfortably. The hose and a handful of gravel.
What? Hose and a handful of what?
I've never been able to make that joke before. It's a reference from one of the old Let's Drown Outs.
A hose and a handful of what?
A hose and a handful of gravel. Because they make the joke, they make a weird... I don't know where it originated. I know the video, but I have no clue why he came up with it. But there's at one point they're playing some old cop. It's an adventure game where you play as a cop, and so there's a bunch of rules about like how you interact with stuff and how you solve your puzzles and issues. And so one of them at one point, you solve someone's issue, and they say like there's some ruffians that you have to like give a speaking to. And the person says something like, "Did you have to get out the rubber hose or something like that?" Which is I have no clue what that is meant to indicate on like is that a reference to some kind of idiom or something? I don't know. They didn't know either. She's like, "What did you think we were doing?" It's like, "Yeah, I had to rough them up with the roughing up enema. You need a hose and a handful of gravel." And that became a riff that they riffed on repeatedly, and that I'd never been able to quote that in a context that made sense.
Well, I
That's how you inject meaning into people's lives. I picked up a bunch of stuff I didn't need just now.
I feel like that's too...
I don't know. I don't need... What was it? Where's the stuff I don't need? This stuff. Drop it.
I fear that is an oversimplification of the argument.
Well, obviously, it's...
I think nihilism being the enemy is a little weak, only because I go, okay.
Well, but can't you agree that we are in very much a meaningless culture?
Don't you agree?
Like, you don't have to go as far as to call it nihilism, but we are certainly in a crisis of meaning.
Well, yes, this is where ethics has to step back in and say, yeah, hi. Because I'm gonna get a little soapboxy here.
Well, but what do you think we've been doing?
At the point that...
What is that you're standing on if it's not a soapbox?
My own 2 feet.
Now it's a soapbox. By merely saying that, it became a soapbox.
I think on an ethics level, you have to bring back in that at the point that we decided we are nothing but mere organisms that are made up of...
That's a very nihilistic argument, though.
Well, I agree.
It's a determinist argument at the very least, which is in league with nihilism.
But I think that's a disservice to determinists, because I would argue Calvinists of some persuasion.
Okay, I'm not talking. No, theological determinism is different than philosophical determinism. I'm not what I'm talking.
Only in.
No, philosophical determinists believe that you don't have free will. The Calvinists.
So do the Calvinists.
No, they wouldn't go that far.
Yes, they would.
They would not say those words.
Extreme Calvinists absolutely would.
They would attempt to couch it, whereas actual determinists are like, yeah, no, you don't have free will.
You're talking about like people that
philosophical determinists believe that essentially chemistry and biomechanics are what determines everything you do, and free choice is just an illusion. And I don't think the Calvinists say that. I've never met a Calvinist that would make that claim openly.
I don't like squatting!
That was a strategy. I'm surprised that didn't turn out more negative.
I don't like squatting! I think it's
She likes it when you squat. She wants you to do it again.
And
she's still coming.
Squats! Where?
Maybe mines are the strategy, because we know she'll chase right after you. You could literally just run backwards, hucking out mines.
Anywho, I think that there has to be a larger...
I think you could make the argument...
There has to be a larger...
Not even ethically.
You can make thing other than yourself. I think that there has to be a larger...
I think that's the best way to do it, but I think you could even go with a purely... Well, I mean, I was going to say purely materialistic, which sounds like we're going to fight consumerism with consumerism. But I mean, in a way, you could just make it a purely selfish thing to say, do you like good things? Yes. Well, if you're willing to pay for good things are cheaper.
No, if you're willing to wait for good things.
Well, waiting and paying, I mean, you're paying with one form of resource in that sense. It's either time or money.
Well, but it's that whole chart. You either want something good and
exactly,
cheap for a long period of time, that you have to wait, or you want something good and fast, and it's
No,
not
or
gonna
something good that you have to pay a lot of money for.
Right, that's what I'm. That's the
Well, exactly. I'm saying you can get one or the other. The joke is you get there's the three triangles, but you can only have two. If you're insisting on quality, there's time or there's money. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying if you like good things, like for example, going back to the Disney thing, do you like good movies? If you stop watching bad movies, there will only be good movies because only the good movies will make money. So it's like I feel like you could selfishly trick people into demanding better. Because if you demand better, you will actually get it. If you want good quality products, you just have to stop buying bad ones. And then you will have good quality products. Because they will be the only things that sell. Now,
but
I think that
this
might be a flimsy thing.
There must
I think
be somebody in that argument that makes the good quality product.
Well, there are.
Meaning,
that's what I think you keep saying. You keep returning to well, there has to be competition. That has to exist. And it's like, it does exist.
I'm just
good
saying,
movies
as
get
a
made.
consumer, you have to also be willing to say, at some level, I'm just saying...
I'm willing to deprive myself in the short term for benefits in the long term.
I'm saying, what I'm saying is...
I don't see trash movies now.
Someone has to be willing to say, all I'm seeing are trash movies. I'm going to be the person to make a non-trash movie. Someone has to say that.
No, because people are making non-trash movies. You don't have to be the person to make one. People do make them.
But
they do exist.
But what I'm saying is
it's just that they get drowned.
Idyllic...
No, they are already being made. Good movies do come out, even in this day and age where most movies are trash. This very year we saw the Batman and we thought it was great. I think it was better than anything Marvel's put out in the past 5 years.
That's certainly true.
No,
yes.
I think it was better than anything Marvel's put out since Endgame. And I'd even probably say I liked it better than Endgame, if I'm perfectly honest. But my point is, good movies are being made. So it's not like someone has to stand up and say, I'll make good movies. People do make good movies. My point is, people have to stop seeing the bad movies.
But what you're stating is you almost disagree with the sentiment that I'm saying. Someone has to actually be the maker of good movies.
Well, because somebody already is. Obviously, those people have to continue making good movies. Yeah,
that's all I'm saying is that...
But I'm saying they already do. All they need to do is to get the money that they're not getting because people are seeing bad movies. They're having to compete with easy, cheap trash. So people are going to go see the easy, cheap trash. Their movies aren't going to make as much money. They can't make better movies.
To a part of the argument that I think is going to probably make it a little more clear.
Effectively, what we're talking about is a flooding of the market in the basics. If you're talking truly economically.
I totally agree.
You have a bunch of cheap, low-level crap that everyone buys, which means that fewer people are going to buy the higher quality stuff. Why are Knicks so expensive? It's because very few people are demanding that level of quality from their shoes.
Correct.
If everybody wanted a pair of Knicks, there would be more companies like Knicks.
Agreed.
The only reason...
And then the cost would go down.
Exactly. It's, again, my point is if you're willing to pay for better stuff, you won't have to pay for better stuff. Because eventually the better stuff will be all that makes money. If you decided I'm only going to spend good quality money on good quality stuff, then that stuff would be cheaper. Now, obviously, everyone has to do it. You're probably not going to get there on your own. It's a little bit like the concept of voting. It's like... Does your vote really matter? Maybe not, but if everybody thought that way, then no votes would matter. So you have to have the idea that everyone's vote matters, because otherwise no one will vote. So it's like, okay, if you're the only one buying Knicks shoes, then probably they're still gonna be expensive. If everyone said we're gonna buy Knicks, the Knicks would be able to lower the price.
Agreed.
The only reason they have to charge that much is because they're only selling. Basically, again, it's flooding of the market. So out of 100 people who buy boots, maybe 2 of them buy Knicks. Probably less.
Right.
If more people demanded quality boots, more people would buy Knicks or equivalents.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I'm only using that one because it's the only one I know the name of. So the point is, if you're willing to spend more on the stuff that matters, then you won't have to spend as much. So people think, well, $500 is way too much for a pair of boots. It's like, well, that's I agree. Because back in the day, that equal quality of boot wouldn't have cost as much because you could have gotten it from more places.
I still think going back to...
Obviously, if you're going to keep saying people still have to make those products, that much is true.
I'm not going to say that.
Well, you've said it like 4 times.
Well, have you listened yet?
Well, are you about to say it again?
Well, have you actually grabbed a hold of it?
Because my point... Well, but here's the thing that I'm confused by is you seem to be more nihilistic than me because you think those things aren't being made. Like, good stuff is still being made. Those people,
so, huh?
Yes. There are good movies that still get made. Now, are they rarer than I'd like them to be? Yes. I would like every movie you go to in a theater to be a good movie. Even if it doesn't appeal to you personally. Like, not every movie is going to be something you love, but I'd like you to be able to walk out of any movie you go see and think, yeah, that was pretty good. Maybe not for me, but I still think it was made well.
Okay, so two things. Number one, I think I'm going to branch out on a limb slightly that's less directly related to the argument, but is related in some form. A part of it is the culture that we are both creating and we have already created and bred in this notion that everybody gets a trophy concept.
Well, yeah.
That part, I think, unfortunately, is a part of the issue.
Dang it.
Because competition is innately a part of...
I thought she would hide, because we did the right thing that time where she actually drained all of her stuff and ran away. But she does have guns that she will not be afraid to use. I thought maybe once you found her again, she'd run again, but...
competition is innately a part of the success of capitalism. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
And so when you take that away because you
can
say...
still be a capitalist
well, you can't have little Johnny
anti-monopoly.
over here, feeling like he lost the game when... It's like, but he did. So, sucks to be him.
It's the
next
nanny.
time.
Well, that's arguably the nanny state we live in. It's no one's feelings can be hurt. Ever.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Okay, so that's the brief, like, just bird walk. But I also want to state that I think in order to refine or fine tune what we were originally saying, I think that the best way of doing that is to go back to the historicity of, okay, when did we actually fall away from quality products? Because
I don't think you can pinpoint that as the problem. I think it happened gradually.
Though.
Well, it was between the 50s and...
Okay, so even on a broad brushstroke level, what on an era level brought that about? Get your noodle pop.
I don't...
Sounded a little more sexual than I meant to do.
You said it, not me. So you keep picking up trash. We don't
went
need everything in these lockers.
I'm just going to the wrong locker.
No, there's good stuff in every locker, pretty much, but you have to not just take everything, because we don't need more guns. Or more ammo for guns we don't have.
If we can, even on a broad brushstroke, like you initially said the industrialization, I don't disagree that was at least a part of it. I think what happened was. Human resource in that it used to be like that became less needed and then people were displaced.
Stuff made in factories was still pretty good back in the day.
Yes. Okay. So let's take the guitar.
Factory, therefore it's bad.
The guitar though. Yeah, I agree. But take the guitar. Something like a custom, electric that was made by hand by some guy that literally carved it out and said, "This is exactly the way that I want this to look," is obviously going to be a more quality than something that's been cranked out on a manufacturing line. That's just a fact.
But even if you have the best stuff from factories was often better because there was a standard screw you.
There was a standard screw you.
That was weird. Like she didn't even attack. She just, get out of here. You're weird. Like there was the difference is because I understand. Whoop, now you're doing it. Now you're doing it the right way. Okay, I thought I was far enough away from that. We talked about the concept of like built-in obsolescence, and I think there's a degree to which I can even understand it, where you're going, okay, if General Electric made a fridge that lasts 100 years, then after a certain amount of time, they're going to sell to everyone in America, and then they're not going to have any more people to sell fridges to.
Well,
the idea of saying, well, we have to make them lesser than that so that people still need us around, and I mean, even then, I'm like...
No, you don't.
There's still a part of me that does... I mean... Does it make... I guess you could make the argument it's like, well, we'd make fridges until the 100 years passed, and then a new company would start up and make more fridges. It's like, yes, I suppose that would be her. She's got guns. I suppose you could make the argument, because I've made that argument with the artistic scene, where it's like, if Disney had died out in the 90s when they were still good... we'd probably be better off, because it's like, okay, yeah, we'd miss out on the bunch of the crap they've made, and maybe a few of the good ones we'd say, well, sucks to be that, but we at least have what was good. I'm more in favor of that with the artistic scene, where you go, I made what I made, and I'm not going to make any more to make money. I'm sticking with this, and if I go down, I go down.
Well, that's very anti-capitalist, though. I would say...
Well, but, I mean... No, because I still think there's a degree of... Art has always been a bit of a lottery, where it's like, okay, you're going to produce a couple of works that people think are all right, and then you'll probably produce maybe one or two that, like, revolutionize
See that book? Freaking nailed it!
Well, yeah, but even then, that's very rare. Where it's like, okay, usually you have to be an artist who it's like everyone knows, yeah, we like, you know, the films that guy makes. Moderately. It's like, yeah, we know his name enough to know who he is and to at least bother to pay attention. And then you make one great thing that's like, okay, name the things George Lucas has made other than Star Wars. He's made plenty. That is the thing that he will be remembered for forever. And
sure,
reasonably so. Because it was the thing that made the most difference. It was also the thing that made just gaggles of cash. So the idea that, like, it's anti-capitalist to only say I'm sticking with what I, you know, the artistic vision and whatnot. Not really, because he made loads of cash doing that. The problem is that's unrepeatable usually. So you can only be an artist who's like, I make moderately good stuff consistently, and occasionally I manage to make something really exceptional.
Agreed. But it is very capitalist to say, how do I do that repeatedly, easily?
I think easily is where you start to sacrifice the artistry for the ease. Those two do seem largely incompatible.
But it's not uncapitalist of me to say, as the person who is selling.
If you are the artist, though, I think art is a different thing because okay. There's nowhere to go.
Other way.
There's nowhere to go with that. I might just have to... I bet you there's health things in these lockers. I probably just need to load up on them and try to surf that out by just injecting myself. I'm being electrocuted and I'm pumping heroin at the same time. Because if you're an artist and you're like, well, I could do this that would be cheaper and would save me money, but it wouldn't be what I'm trying to create... Then I think on an artist level, then you do have to make that choice and say, I'm going to stick with the artistic vision. But I think that that's where the analogy breaks down somewhat. Because a business is not an artist. An artist is one person. Therefore, it is actually one person's decision. Am I going to be cheap or am I going to stick with what I'm doing? I'm simply saying that I don't think that decision ever gets made truly by businessmen. Because it's not, you know, the order comes to the desk of the CEO and he decides we're going to be a bunch of cheapskates. I mean, maybe that happens. I'm sure that it does happen. But I feel like when it's that brazen, the companies do usually go under. It's when it's a conglomeration of literally just a bunch of spreadsheets that everyone make that make the decision. Because then I don't think anybody's actually taken the reins and said we're going to be not a bunch of cheapskates or we are. So I think the art versus business. Oh boy. That's the first time that's ever happened.
That was an interesting
the art versus business, I think that's where they have to diverge, because what I'm coming down to is it's always people's decisions. Businesses are not people. There are people in businesses.
But they're made up of people.
Yes, but the problem is to get back to what you're saying, where people en masse tend to be stupid, a business is just people en masse.
Well, there you go.
So the problem is businesses don't make... simultaneously, businesses do and don't make decisions because the people in them are so separated from the decision that it's not really them making it, and yet the business couldn't exist without the people underneath it.
For it.
Well, that's why I think we ought to get back to a time of the kind of industrialist where it was like this business was... under Steve Jobs, Apple was a good company because he was the man. Nothing went out of Apple that he did not approve. And we kind of need to get back to that day where instead of the business, Steve Jobs made those decisions. Apple didn't. He did. Nowadays, Apple makes the decisions, not whoever's in charge.
If I can question, I suppose, or in order to clarify your argument, let me question what the solution potentially would be. Not like, oh, you've solved all the world's problems. But
I don't think I have.
But I'm saying what is a viable solution?
This is what I'm trying to determine because I don't know. All I'm trying to do is to say, can we at least agree that the problem is in a different spot? That's the first step to finding a solution, is to at least stop blaming the wrong thing.
Identify the proper problem. I agree.
I don't know the solution. I'm just simply saying, how can we convince more people of what the problem actually is?
Because I think the problem is innate.
I don't agree, though, because I don't think we always had this problem.
But then I go back to the historicity. Where did we lose it?
Well, sometime in the relatively recent past, within the past 100 years, let's say.
Okay, so what?
I don't know.
What has changed from the pre? Again, I'm not disagreeing with any of your arguments. I think
the
fantastic.
culture has changed. I think we live in a far more nihilistic culture than we used to.
Is that because of the
because of
loss
probably
of theology and ethics?
Probably, yeah, that and world wars and.
So within world wars, though, was that? Did that give people a sense of?
Well, we talked about this in the other one, where the concept of anything being high class was looked negatively upon simply because the high class was associated with the nobility who caused the World War One. Whereas, like, we now we throw the baby out the bathwater, where anything that is good, we equate to being high class, and therefore we get rid of it because it reminds us of a negative association, which was justified, but that doesn't mean we didn't go too far in eradicating it. Ah, no! I didn't stim myself. I even picked up one of those nurdles. One of those needles. I had one, and I probably needed to equip it so I could hotkey it or something.
Hot nurdles, where they got it. Anywho, I don't know that we're gonna have to revisit this one, because I think that my suspicion would be that somewhere.
I would say culture
if I had
changed.
to speculate,
if you had to force me, I would say it's culture that's changed in the last 100 years.
But culture, I would argue, culture changed somewhere around industrialization, and I'm not blaming it on that.
No,
what I am
because I
saying
think
is,
industrialization was earlier than this happened.
Again, I'm not blaming.
I think it's the
on
nihilism of World War One. If I had
but
to
what
state
about
it,
World War One? Again, you have to continue to pare it down to okay.
No, I don't
what
think you do. Why we discussed that, and I'm not a World War One historian, but there is documented evidence. It's like, why did architecture change so drastically? It's like, we do have the proof. People didn't like the big ornate buildings that reminded them of the nobility. So buildings were made very utilitarian, very simple, because otherwise it would have been seen as far too ostentatious.
But
we threw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that's the ultimate truth of it. Well, because that's a natural overreaction.
Why?
I mean,
okay, so
to say the nobility is corrupt was factually true, but to say everything about it had to go.
So
I think
we're coming back to Eastern Hegelianism.
Well, that's Western, by the way. Hegel was German.
Well, yes, but I'm saying the notion of Eastern kind of balance within culture, and saying it's not about either or, it's about balance.
Well, but that's Hegelianism. There's nothing Eastern about that.
Yin yang. That's very Eastern.
Yeah, but that's not what Hegel was proposing.
Well, I'm equating the two. I'm not saying
I
Hegel
do genuinely
was
think
Eastern.
I think we've had the thesis and the antithesis, and synthesis has to come in the future.
That is certainly true.
That very much is true, but I'm saying how can we usher it in a little bit more? How long do we have to spend?
Hose and some gravel.
How long do we have to spend on the antithesis before we can get to the synthesis? Because I don't want to spend too long in this part, because I think we can all agree it kind of sucks.
Unfortunately, you have to be the type of person that doesn't swing to either.
No, but you kind of do, though. That would be the Hegelian argument, is that you can't reach the middle without swinging in between. It's a little bit like a critically damped system will overswing,
mass, yeah,
and then will right itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you can perfectly damp a system so that it goes towards its resting state immediately. That is also not always desirable, because sometimes you actually would prefer to have a bit of the overswing.
And I guess my concern is on a what's the?
I think for the meantime you could trick people, and this sounds mean, but I mean you trick people with the selfish concern of being like, regardless of the deeper meaning, which has to come later, you can't force that. But you could say, just think about the way your life could be better if you did this. You could have better stuff. That's a materialist argument. You're fighting materialism with materialism.
My concern,
but at least it would maybe work long enough for the meaning to grow, because the meaning has to be planted, and it's got. I mean, that's going to be who knows how many decades.
I guess I'm
just saying. Can we not accelerate it by going?
In the same way that is it
rational self-interest?
Is it Newton's cradle that does the weird kind of like thing?
Well, the desk, you're talking about like the desk toy?
Yeah, but I'm just saying my concern is that there is a degree of human nature that will never sit in the middle, ever. because people are stupid.
Well, there's an element, but the argument could be made, dialectically speaking, that you never truly reach a middle, but there is always closer and closer swings. Less and less violent swings, I would say. So you swing one way.
I think that's
because that's true. The way a pendulum works is you don't swing one way and then swing to the middle. You swing too far, then you swing back not as far, then you swing back not as far. It diminishes over time.
Yes,
until eventually it gets to the middle.
Comes off as a very Zionistic perspective.
Zionistic?
Yeah, meaning eventually humankind will get to a place of ideal. But I think external forces will always upset those such things. And that's my point. There's always going to be
external forces. Well, but there's going to be things beyond us. But can we at least get ourselves not so that we're swinging ourselves?
Well, that's
if we get swung by nature, that's something we can't help. But if we're not adding to the swing,
how very stoic of you.
Well, exactly. I think that's part of the solution. I mean, that's certainly part of the answer to the nihilist question. Is you go. It isn't actually.
There you go, folks.
In some ways, it isn't because
Stoicism.
The Stoics never had to confront nihilism because it came after them. Because the Stoics would at least argue that to endure suffering as best as you could was the only hope you had. Whereas the nihilists would say, "Well, what if I decide that's not even enough?" At which point, I don't know what the Stoics would have said because they never encountered that, but. All I'm saying is, it's basically what Jordan Peterson says, is life certainly is suffering. There's probably not much we can do about that, but we could make it less suffering. We could make it the minimum amount of suffering. So yes, the pendulum will never come to rest, probably because external forces will bounce it around. But as long as we ourselves aren't bouncing it around further, then it has a chance of finding rest faster than if we just stay in chaos.
And that has to be something that you start internally within yourself. That cannot be, and again, I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here. But
what are you pretending? How long? We've been on the soapbox this whole time.
I'm just saying it cannot be an expectation of the culture, like, oh, I wish this would just happen in culture. You have to be the change.
Well, yeah, that's why that quote is real for a reason. It's why no one lives by it. Everyone, that's the funny thing. That's what really makes you depressed, is you just go, we have quotes. We have famous sayings that literally tell us what we need to do. And we all know these sayings, and we say these sayings, but we still don't do them. That's what'll make you really nihilist, is you just go, we have all the answers. We've already answered the questions. We're just not doing them.
Do you hear that laugh? Nobody wants to do it. Alrighty.
I need more tea.